In the ever-evolving digital global economy, every enterprise, no matter their size, industry vertical, or geographic marketplace, will have to face a reality. The time is now to elevate their risk management programs, safety solutions, and programs for management of risk across their entire operations. Far from traditional risk management, the era of enterprise-class, rich management software solutions has arrived. Specific, configurable solutions needed to reduce losses, control risk, and affect shareholder value. Greetings, everyone. It's Friday, June 13, 2014, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. Up to the Tech Talk, what every top executive, business owner, and enterprise entrepreneur needs to know about managing risk in the era of high-speed computers, cognitive technologies, electronic commerce, and a cloud full of unknown opportunities and liabilities. Ready to Tech Talk? Bob Morrell, an industry leader and true pioneer in risk management, co-founder and chief executive officer of Riskonnect, a company he founded in 2007 that has become an industry-recognized leading solutions platform that is secure, reliable, and fast, powering more than 60,000 businesses and running more than 100,000 applications that 1.5 million users count on every day. A leading authority on risk management technology solutions. On this edition of Tech Talk, Bob explores comprehensive applications and addresses strategic and traditional insurable risk management for today's enterprise and tomorrow's digital economy. Recently named winner of Risk and Insurance Magazine's Risk Innovators Award for the utility sector, and the company won the Salesforce.com at the award for the Salesforce Breakthrough Appy of the Year. Riskonnect is also one of TAG's top 40 most innovative companies in Georgia. It's a must-listen Tech Talk on the competitive advantages and crucial potential damaging liabilities with a uniquely qualified industry leader and innovator. It's a Tech Talk about the advantages of proactive enterprise risk management as we speak with Riskonnect co-founder and CEO Bob Morrell. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Bob, welcome to Tech Talk.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Risk management, obviously in this era, it's got to be magnified exponentially like everything else, claims, litigation, exposure, policy management. In the progress, I know you've been in this industry for a long period of time. Give us kind of a sense of perspective over the, say, last few years and what kind of impact the business has in this particular digital economy, for example.
Well, absolutely, and people like to say that the world is becoming a riskier and riskier place, and that, of course, is true, but also the appetite for risk amongst companies. Everyone's looking to manage risk better, and as technology further and further progresses, professionals within risk management are looking for ways to use technology to manage risk within their organizations in far more effective ways.
So it's proactive as much as it is reactive.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a lot of what we do. Obviously, you have to be able to react to what happens within an organization on a day-to-day basis, but also we like to provide solutions and ways where organizations can be proactive. For example, what are some of the emerging risks that are coming out for their organization, whether they're inside the organization or external risks that are facing their organization. They're always looking for ways to understand that better and better manage it.
Now, in the early days of the technology era, we'd say brick and click, with a little bit of each in terms of being able to deal with individuals on a face-to-face basis. And then, obviously, now with things like clouds and even analytics and predictive analytics, I would assume a lot of this stuff becomes cognitive. Is it sort of a brick and click type situation as it relates to risk management today? Do you work with the customer in a sort of consultative way and then ultimately implement technology or interface technology into their organizations?
Well, absolutely, and you'd like to think that customers and risk management professionals included know exactly what they need when they go to implement a technology platform or really any new business initiative. But the reality is it's very, very consultative. And risk management is something that in the past was kind of done in a siloed way, sort of in the ivory tower of an organization. But now what's happening is they're pushing it out. So everyone in an organization is involved in some way, shape, or form. For example, they could be at a sporting goods retailer, and what happens when someone gets hurt or something happens, and how do they investigate that? Well, that's taking risk management and pushing it out throughout the organization and having everyone be involved and really making their organization risk aware instead of just kind of, oh, something bad happened and just call up the risk manager and see what we should do.
Is it possible to get that from a single source? That breadth and depth of when a single retail organization for the possibilities of everything from government regulations all the way through to employee concerns all the way through to customer relations?
Well, that's really the trick, right? And really what's happening is the very term risk management has been undergoing kind of a metamorphosis over the last 10 years or so. And we try to ride that wave, so to speak. So risk management, for example, if you look at safety traditionally was all about incidents. Oh, something happened. Well, risk management is kind of all about the financials. So what did this cost? What are the numbers involved? But when you look at those two things in isolation, they can tell very different stories. So one of the things we like to do is bring all of that together. And when you look at that proactive loss control, but also looking at the financial side of risk and claims, and eventually the risk transfer mechanism, insurance, then you get a really, really good picture of what's going on in an organization. And that's something that technology is required to do. You must have some form of information system to bring that all together effectively.
Well, not only competitive, but survival. I would think, and is it naive to say that this would impact, say, for example, a spectrum that would, I'm thinking of some of the latest news headlines with a Target breach of data all the way through to the horrific Walmart crash that happened the last couple of days with the comedian celebrity. Is that kind of thing involved in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens is when you have an incident, like, for example, what Target had, so the real costs around that in terms of managing the core incident, say that's around a couple $100 million. Now, it sounds like a lot of money, but of course to an organization as large as Target, it really isn't. But the brand damage, what happens, and of course what happens to the executives, whether or not they were directly responsible for it or not, that is a huge impact. So when you look at effective risk management, you really have to look at those direct costs, of course, but also that indirect reputational damage. And reputational damage can take on many, many forms. It can be, Apple's not able to get the iPhone out quickly enough, or you can't manage your supply chain effectively, or you have some sort of breach of customer confidence. And quite frankly, the bigger the brand, the harder they fall. So if you're, a well-known, Fortune 50 brand, it just makes it all the more important to properly manage all aspects of risk in a cohesive way.
So I'm guessing and cohesive is a key word, and the integration of risk management into the overall strategy of the corporation?
Absolutely. I mean, I think boards have been slowly waking up and realizing that what they do is risk management, and they have to look at that in a very specific way. And now there are regulations, SEC regulations and others that force them to do it and make them accountable to do it. But in order to do that right, they have to have a methodology, and that's where enterprise risk management comes in. And that methodology is something that, the more effective it is, the more consistently it's done throughout an organization, the better off they're going to be. And of course, that's where systems and technology come in as well to help provide a common platform for enforcing that methodology and making it a reality.
We've all seen the evolution of the CTO, CEO, CIO, the difference in terms of the technology impact and the influence they have in the overall strategy. There's a lot of people who say that the CTO now is allowed in the boardroom, whereas before they never were. Is it a case where the culture embraces the risk management situation enough for you to be part of the collaborative management? Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we also see the role of the CIO, CTO evolving. It used to be that, of course, corporations built a bunch of their own software. So we have the cloud has come in, and organizations are at various phases of adopting the cloud and accepting the fact that they're not going to be building their own software. They're not necessarily going to be hosting their own systems. They're going to allow others that's what they do to do it. Now, so what is that new role for the technology executive? Well, that role is to make sure all of that stuff that's going on is done in a secure way, is done in a way that is in the interest of the organization. So their role is actually, a lot fear of the change, but the reality is cloud computing is giving them the opportunity to elevate what they do and become more strategic and be a true partner at that executive level rather than kind of just the go-to person to build some software.
It's always been about trust, but boy, that's got to be a huge consideration when you're making that kind of an interrelationship and a more or less a quote-unquote bonding in terms of the direction of the company. Talk a little bit about, from the standpoint of, how do I know I need the product? How do I need to know that what are the indications that I should be using some form of risk management technology? And what are the kind of, what's an ideal company? Size, expansion, geographic territory, electronic versus brick, or does that matter? That type of thing. What's an ideal customer? Sure,
absolutely. And really the market for risk management information systems, or RMIS, has been evolving over the decades. This is a software industry that's been around since the 70s. And traditionally it's been people that have a lot of insurance claims. And they got to consolidate all of those claims into one place and do analysis around loss control and project what their losses are going to be in the future for accounting purposes. Well, that's been going on for decades. And organizations that need that are large organizations with large physical footprints. They have lots of property, lots of employees, customers walking in and out of buildings. They might be large multinational corporations. But what we've seen, because of the changes we just talked about in the risk management landscape, is that there's a lot more to risk management than there used to be. So organizations that have a lot of business process around assessing and ascertaining risk. So it could be a company that manages lots of vendors, like a property management company. So they got to assess the risk of those vendors and lots of checks and things they need to do. So that could be a company that needs it. It could be a company that allocates their losses out and their premiums to lots of other organizations, like a franchisor. That's an organization that certainly can benefit from this type of risk management technology.
I'm thinking healthcare as well as some of the systems that are involved in actually where they've migrated into management, property management, and a whole lot of other disciplines and of course all of the federal regulations that go in play.
Yeah, and healthcare is a whole nother beast. And actually, the way we look at healthcare risk management technologies, it's in the United States, it's actually as big as all other industries combined. Hospital is a very dangerous place for people. A lot of bad things happen, and there's a lot of procedures and processes that need to be followed to help minimize those things from happening. But that's not even mentioning the regulatory climate is something that no one's really seen before, and it's quite a huge change. And there's specific mandates, of course, around using information systems, but there's also so much regulation around proper methodologies and ways of doing things, and system technology. Good enterprise-class information systems are there to help enforce that. And now cloud computing technology has become mature enough where those organizations feel comfortable with using cloud computing technology because it's at least as secure as what they have internally, if not more so.
Mind-boggling. I mean, when you think about the demands on the management and the operators of these organizations, it's a good thing. This kind of, in a way, the technology has evolved kind of complementary. I was thinking as you were talking about you don't want to read it before you pass it, kind of a thing, because it must be as complicated as one can imagine. Let's talk a little bit about, just quickly, and that is sustainable competitive advantage for your particular company. Obviously, in an environment as dynamic as you're describing, it's got to be a very, very difficult, very competitive environment. What are some of the innovations your company are involved with that make you feel that are sustainably competitive?
Yeah, absolutely. And really, the key to us being constant innovators and constantly disrupting our industry is our use of cloud computing technology. So we were the first in our industry to do that, and that enables us to focus on really what businesses need and their future, what they're not really thinking about. So, for example, Apple, for example, they're always looking for ways to innovate and do things that customers haven't even thought of before. So that's what we like to do. We like to take the role of risk management and say, what do risk managers, what aren't they doing today that they really should be doing? Where should they have a seat at the table? And of course, we talked about enterprise risk management, and that's a big area, but also crisis management. So we come out with a product called Riskonnect Alerts. So Riskonnect Alerts allows them to have a view into what's going on outside in the world and how does that specifically impact their organization. So now the risk manager who's always kind of had a seat at the table in business continuity, now they really do have a seat at the table. As a matter of fact, they're the ones with the platform that the whole company looks at. So that's how we're pushing risk management beyond what it was before. Kind
of a different angle. One last question, because I think it's when you're describing it just from your own personal business strategy, you obviously have immense demands to fund a situation like that, to continue to feed the innovation monster, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, opportunities. That said, give us a quick idea of the philosophy you have around venture capital and funding versus, say, organic growth.
Absolutely, and what we like to say at Riskonnect is this is not our first rodeo. This is not the first company I've started in my career, and I learned the hard way that bringing institutional investment in too early can really take your focus away from the customer. So what we did at Riskonnect is we waited as long as we possibly could, and that's core to our underlying business model. Where we partner with a cloud computing provider, so our upfront R&D costs weren't as high as they would be otherwise. So that allowed us to go as long as we could without that outside institutional funding. And then what we did was we waited really until we got to more of a growth equity stage, and we're able to bring in substantial funding but do it at a minority. And that allowed myself and my founders to maintain full control of the organization and allows us to keep the focus and the strategy of our organization focused exclusively on our customers. And that's been huge. That's been a big thing, and that's something we've pointed out from the very, very beginning of starting Riskonnect.
Well, certainly the proof is in the performance, and the performance has been beyond outstanding. Congratulations. Obviously, the future looks extremely promising, as dynamic as you're describing it, and with the kind of disciplines and the kind of innovative vision that you guys are operating with. Sounds like we've got another place where, they say at TAG, where Georgia leads, that certainly one of the places is going to be in risk management solutions. Bob, thank you for taking time from what is an extremely busy schedule to spend a few minutes explaining to us about risk management and telling us about Riskonnect.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody.